When I reached the place, practically all the servants from the Crescent were already there. As in the case of Mrs. Lancaster, they stood more or less together, a huddled silent group with the women silently and conventionally weeping. George Talbot had arrived and taken charge, sending Lizzie to telephone for the police, and Daniels, curiously enough, had taken off his cap. "Gone to her maker, miss," he said to me. Then, seeing that I looked white, he added, "It is as natural to die as to be born." How was I to know that he was quoting from Bacon's essay on death? He went away quietly soon afterwards, leaving word that he would be on Euclid Street when he was wanted. But he was not there. His brush and his rubbish cart was there, all the simple paraphernalia of his business, but it was late afternoon before he used them again. Then I saw him, and he said he had felt sick. She'd been very kind to me, he explained, as though that was the answer. Looking back, I see him moving through all our troubles, an untidy white figure who came and went, hardly noticed, a mild-faced man with no particular characteristics save a slight limp and the thick glasses of a man who had been operated for cataract. At some time he had suffered a paralysis of one side of his face, which drooped. But he was cheerful and a steady worker. Who could have guessed that he was the key to so much that we could learn only slowly and painfully? He had drifted away before the siren of the police car sounded at the gates to the Crescent. By that time, some of them only casually attired, the Crescent families were appearing. George Talbot tried to wave his mother back, but she came on, and so did Miss Lydia. Mr. Dalton appeared in his dressing gown. Mother had arrived, and insisted that the body be removed at once into the Talbot house, regardless of police regulations. And almost before the police car had had time to stop, I saw Helen Wellington, in pajamas and carrying a cigarette, walking toward the group and looking interested and nonchalant. All of this, of course, is only a picture, photographed on my mind, the background for Emily Lancaster, lying on her side on the warm summer earth and looking clumsy and heavy even in death. She had been shot through the head, a quick and merciful death, at least. But like the others, I dare say, my stunned mind could comprehend only the murder itself. Or was it murder? The two policemen, having driven us all back, were searching for a weapon near the body in case of suicide, and being careful not to step on the ground beyond the path. There was no weapon in sight, however, and unless it lay under her they knew that a second crime had been committed within less than 200 yards of the first. That was the situation when Margaret Lancaster came running down the steps of their kitchen porch, a wild-eyed and half-crazed woman. Ellen was the first to reach her and to try to get her back into the house, but she shook her off and came on toward us, dreadfully and determinedly. "I want to see her," she said. "I must see her." "Let go of me, Ellen." "Let go, I say." She went through us without seeing any of us, and she paid no attention whatever to the two policemen. "Please don't touch her," one of them said. "Sorry, miss, but that's a regulation." I doubt if she heard him. Moaning softly, she got down on her knees and looked at her sister. Then something of the inevitability of the situation must have come to her, for when she rose again she seemed calmer. "I'll go back now," she said, to no one in particular. "I must tell my father." Mother and Ellen went back with her along the path, but I heard later that she shut them both out and went in alone. She was certainly not herself, Mother told me later. Anyone could smell Ellen's oatmeal burning on the stove, but she simply slammed the door, and of course it has a spring lock. She was in no condition to break the news to anybody. No wonder he collapsed. For that was the next news we had. It came while the homicide squad was still at work in the morning sun, and shortly after the body had been taken away, carefully covered, on a stretcher. Mr. Lancaster had had a stroke, and Dr. Armstrong's car drove up just as the police ambulance was carrying Miss Emily away. It was the doctor, coming in later to give Mother her hypodermic of iron, who told us. "It's not surprising," he said. "He's almost 70, and he has been in very poor shape ever since his wife's death." As a matter of fact, I believe he had his stroke in the night. "In the night," Mother said. "Then he doesn't know about Emily?" "I doubt it. Margaret went in to tell him as best she could, poor woman." The room was still dark, and she sat down on the edge of the bed and took his hand. Apparently he opened his eyes, or at least she thinks so. She told him to be brave, and that she had some bad news for him, but he did not move.